Say what? Let's get it, baby. Spider-Man 4 confirmed. Everything we know and want, okay?
Guys, Spider-Man No Way Home has received 3 golden tomatoes, so I just wanted to say a massive thank you on behalf of everyone from Sony and Marvel, the critics, the fans who have shown so much love and respect and support for our movies. It means the world, and, you know, hopefully we can do it again and again and again. But thank you, and we'll see you soon.
What's going on, everybody? It's Warren. Welcome back to the Cosmic Wonder, where we talk all
I never
things
even
Marvel,
heard
all
of
things
Golden
MCU,
Tomatoes.
and of course, Spider-Man. Spider-Man No Way Home was a massive success, especially if you consider all of its success during a pandemic right now. If we weren't in the middle of a pandemic, it might be the biggest movie of all time. But don't worry, Spider-Man is going to get another chance at the box office. In fact, it's going to be getting 3 more chances, as Marvel Studios, Sony, and Tom Holland himself have all confirmed that we are indeed going to be getting a Spider-Man 4, 5, and 6. Tom Holland is going to be getting another trilogy. In fact, Tom Holland just put out a recent video thanking the fans for praising Spider-Man No Way Home and helping them get 3 golden tomatoes, and he said hopefully they can do it again and again and again. So, more Spider-Man movies coming. What is in store for us, though, with the future of Spider-Man? Specifically, who are the villains going to be, and will Spider-Man be joined by any other heroes in his other films? Well, as it turns out, we actually have a pretty decent idea of who the villains could be, and another Spider-Man joining Tom Holland's. And I'll break it all down in this video. If you're new, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you can stay up to date on all MCU news and, of course, Spider-Man news. So, first and foremost, thank you to Kevin Feige and Sony for right off the bat, right after Spider-Man No Way Home came out, they came out and said, yes, we are indeed working on another Spider-Man right now with Tom Holland. Kevin Feige said that the only reason he told us that and confirmed it is because he didn't want a lot of panic like what happened last time. There was the whole little battle between Sony and Marvel Studios not too long ago where we didn't really know if Spider-Man was going to remain in the MCU or not, or if Sony were going to take all of the rights back, not share anything with Marvel, and put Tom Holland's Spider-Man in their own Sonyverse. So, thank you, Kevin Feige, for confirming we are indeed going to be getting a Spider-Man 4 and now a new trilogy in the MCU with Tom Holland. And it looks like we kind of know what the story is going to be and who the villain is going to be for Spider-Man 4. Now, this, of course, is thanks to the Spider-Man No Way Home post-credit scene. The first one, not the Doctor Strange trailer, but the post-credit scene with Venom. We saw Tom Hardy's Eddie Brock and, of course, Venom, and they were in the MCU for a brief moment. They kind of pulled a fast one on us at the end of Let There Be Carnage. Venom went to the MCU, and we thought, alright, here we go, this is it, Tom Hardy's Eddie Brock versus Tom Holland's Spider-Man. But in the post-credit, Eddie Brock and Venom got taken back to the Sony universe, but a piece of the Venom symbiote got left behind in the MCU. And here's where we pick up with the story of Spider-Man 4. We know that symbiotes are intelligent, some more intelligent than others. In fact, Venom, the one that we know from the Sonyverse, has already admitted that back on his home planet, he's kind of a loser. But we know that they're intelligent nonetheless. And this piece of symbiote that broke off from the Venom symbiote will become its own being, but it's still going to be
he's a loser
Venom
doesn't mean he's stupid.
And this Venom symbiote just listened to a whole conversation with Eddie Brock and this bartender, where the bartender explained the Avengers, Thanos, and Spider-Man. In fact, one of the last things that Eddie Brock said was, maybe I should go to New York and talk to the Spider-Man. And it looks like that's going to be this symbiote's plan. Go to New York and find Spider-Man. And from here, we'll probably get a story very similar to Spider-Man 3, the Sam Raimi Spider-Man 3 with Tobey Maguire. For those
kitchen rides on people
movie, and I know a lot of
to
people
go to New
don't
York.
worry, this is Marvel Studios. They've handled everything exceptionally well so far. I'm sure the story is going to be much different, and things are going to be handled much better. In fact, I'm really excited for this because this seems to be the comic-accurate story of the Venom symbiote. First, bonding with Spider-Man / Peter Parker, how it's supposed to be, instead of like how Sony did it, where the Venom symbiote actually first bonded with Eddie Brock. Now in the MCU, we have a chance to start over
with
the
Deadpool
symbiote
first.
with Tom Holland,
Someone
Spider-Man
help me out with
Parker.
that.
And of course, from there, Peter will have a little fun, but then he'll realize that the symbiote isn't exactly a good thing. He'll part ways with it, and then it'll go probably to an Eddie Brock of the MCU. Maybe a different character, but we do know if they are going for a comic-accurate story, it should go to Eddie Brock next. And then, of course, from here, we should have a Venom versus Spider-Man film. Now, there's always a chance that they could bring in another villain as well, but based off of what has been set up so far, Spider-Man 4 should be a Venom versus Spider-Man film. But what is next after that? Well, let's not forget what just happened in Hawkeye. They introduced one of Spider-Man's biggest villains, Kingpin. Kingpin is now in the MCU.
Didn't show him die. Just heard the gunshot.
He has to run into Peter Parker / Spider-Man. You can't put one of the biggest villains of all time in the same universe as Spider-Man and not expect them to meet. Now, we do have a long way to go until then, but this will probably be Spider-Man 5, which means we probably have between 4 to 6 years until we see it. Maybe even longer, unfortunately. But fortunately, we are going to be seeing Kingpin in the MCU probably several more times. Definitely in the upcoming Echo series. And big spoilers for the Hawkeye series. Some of you may be thinking, but Kingpin died in the very last episode of Hawkeye. No, he didn't. We know the rule. If they don't actually show the person dying, that person is probably still alive, especially in the Marvel Universe. But what even more so tells us that he is alive is that this actually happens in the comics. Echo actually shoots Kingpin in the face and he goes blind in both eyes. Eventually he does go on to get his sight back though, which is something that we can assume is going to happen. Now, Spider-Man No Way Home brought Matt Murdock in, aka Daredevil, and he's supposed to be in the Echo series as well, because if he's not, then that's a huge missed opportunity. Because in the comics, they're lovers. They fall in love with each other. In fact, Echo falls in love with Matt Murdock before she even knows that he's Daredevil. But the two of them eventually go on to know who each other are, and they both go on to fight against Kingpin. So I can imagine that at some point in time, Spider-Man and Daredevil will also team up like they do in the comics a lot. So there is a possibility that, say, Spider-Man 5 could be another somewhat of a team-up movie for Spider-Man, him teaming up with Daredevil to take down the mighty Kingpin. Nice. Now, as far as a villain for Spider-Man 6, we're thinking way ahead now, I know, but trust me, all this stuff does get set up. We could have a true Sinister 6 movie. After all, there are a ton of villains still remaining in the MCU that were not addressed in Spider-Man No Way Home.
Scorpion.
We have Vulture, Scorpion, Chameleon. There are quite a few villains in the MCU who kind of got pushed under the rug a little bit to have Spider-Man No Way Home happen. But we can assume that at some point in time, they'll probably come back up, especially since Michael Keaton's Vulture is in the Morbius trailer. So Spider-Man 6 could be a true Sinister 6 film, like where they actually call them the Sinister 6. Now, Kingpin could be in charge of that, or they could bring in their very own MCU version of Oscorp and Norman Osborn. Now, this could be a little bit less likely since in Spider-Man No Way Home, Norman Osborn said Oscorp doesn't exist. Now, it doesn't mean that there's not another Norman Osborn out there somewhere trying to get it started, or maybe the company is called something else, but there is always the possibility. And this movie could also be a team-up film as well, since we did get a Miles Morales Easter egg in Spider-Man No Way Home. When Jamie Foxx finally figured out the identity of Spider-Man, he told Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man that he thought he was going to be black. And then he said, there's got to be a black Spider-Man out there somewhere. And he is right, because Miles Morales technically does exist in the MCU. In Spider-Man Homecoming, Donald Glover, aka the Childish Gambino, played Prowler. Aaron Davis, the uncle of Miles Morales. And he even said in this scene that he has a nephew. That nephew, of course, is Miles Morales, which confirms Miles Morales does exist in the MCU. And if I had to guess, if this is going to be Tom Holland's last trilogy as Spider-Man, they will probably set up Miles Morales to be the new Spider-Man in the MCU by the end of this new trilogy. And if this does happen, that means Miles will most likely show up as his own version of Spider-Man in the very last film and then take over the Spider-Man mantle, which is something that I truly do hope happens. But let me know what you all think. Is this a pretty good route for the Spider-Man franchise to go down over the next few years, or would you like to see something completely different?
I'd like to see Miles sooner, though.
In the comments down below. Don't forget to like the video, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the latest news. For live updates, you can always follow me on Instagram and Twitter, and as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.
I think I'd like to see him sooner. I'd love this. I already told y'all shit. I want all 3 Spider-Man franchises running parallel at all times, killing it, And we get to see all of them, and then maybe one of them, probably Toby, since he's the oldest, maybe retiring. I don't want to see him die, but okay, if he dies, you know, he dies, and Miles takes over in that universe, I'd be fine with that. I would be fine with that. And then you still got 3 Spider-Man franchises. You know what I mean? I would love to see that. Love to see that. So I'm a happy Spider-Man fan right now. Let me know what you guys all think. Make sure you subscribe to Cosmic Wonder. And if you enjoyed my reaction to this news, hit the like button, subscribe, and share, and smash that thanks button. 10 million subscribers. Woo!